Hi everyone, my name is Brenda, and today I will tell you about two very interesting papers that I read recently about AI and global inequality and how the future of AI can really shape the economy globally. The two papers that I read are from Khan et al., and the second one is from Kornick and Stieglitz. So first, let's go into the differences between these papers. And the really interesting thing is that the first one, especially Khan et al., looks at AI in a positive light versus Kornick and Stieglitz warns about, the downsides of AI for inequality globally. Um, so both papers agree that artificial intelligence has the potential to reshape the global economy, but they do differ on how and for whom. Let's look at the positive sides first, and Khan et al. Propose an optimistic view as they argue that AI could be a tool for leapfrogging. What that means is that low-income countries can skip over older stages of development and jump directly to advanced technologies. So think, for example, about mobile banking in third world countries that has been a lot quicker to develop than in the past absorptive capacity. So this is a great opportunity for low income countries to learn and adapt from foreign technologies. So that means, again, similar to leapfrogging, they can access these technologies faster, have the right education systems, institutions, digital infrastructure in a quicker and faster way, which will ultimately boost their development. And lastly, it talks a lot about digital equity, the belief that technology shouldn't just benefit rich countries or elites, of course, but should be inclusive and serve marginalized populations too. And Khan et al. See artificial intelligence as something that, if shared fairly, can improve healthcare, education, governance in underserved regions. Now let's talk about Kornick and Staglitz on the other hand. They are much more cautious about their view of AI, and they warn that it is often a tool that will worsen inequality. They talk about labor displacement, which means that ultimately AI will replace jobs more than help generate them. They talk about resource pricing, which means, AI can eventually lower the price for oil and minerals, which would be something good for some countries, but also detrimental to some whose economy relies solely on those resources. Another big concern is superstar firms. What does it mean? It means big tech companies in the US or China dominate global markets, and AI is going to help them become even bigger as opposed to helping smaller companies develop and continue to grow so they're able to compete with these superstar firms. And then lastly, it talks about weak distribution, right? So right now, there's no system in place to transfer AI generated wealth from rich countries to developing ones, which means there's not going to be digital equity, but quite the opposite. All the benefits are going to go to rich economies, rich companies, and that is really a concern for these authors. Now, let's talk a bit further about the development opportunities with AI, mostly looking from Khan et al.'s perspective. Um, Using AI to leapfrog in health, education, energy, governance, really all these items that are going to bring um, the country forward and building up sort of capacity. So using it intelligently to learn from other countries and where it can get them. And then lastly, countries should be really careful about promoting digital justice and global tech partnerships so that small players in all industries can benefit from this availability of AI. On the other side, the downside of it is that it does reduce labor demand and natural resources, as mentioned before. And it's very much a winner takes all dynamic for these companies that are big and countries that are already powerful and filled with technology. Again, another big concern is that global redistribution mechanisms are insufficient or absent at this point in history. Lastly, I did want to mention some strategic recommendations for low-income countries based on the learnings from both of these papers. Um, let's start with Khan et al. So this paper emphasizes a two-pronged strategy, investing in digital infrastructure and human capital. So what does this mean in terms of digital infrastructure? It means that everything from expanding internet access to building data system training developers and data scientists. So really making sure that not only the infrastructure of the country, but also the people there are prepared to receive these AI technologies and really grow from it and develop with it as opposed to being left behind. Really would recommend that low-income countries focus on developing absorption capacity and either set up the right infrastructure or the right task forces to make sure that we're learning from other countries and how they have applied these technologies to important sectors like health, education, and governance, which are ultimately going to improve the quality of life and the status of the country as well. Now, there are some learnings from Kornick and Steiglitz as well. So they really focus on the importance of policy, right? Reforming taxation is really important. And there should be intellectual property rules on AI firms so that this means that everyone's job is really secured and protected. And that, the winners from this are able to pay taxes so that the underdeveloped communities can um, be benefited from this ultimately. Um, Focusing on labor-rich sectors, not just capital. So that means, we should make sure that we are enabling the human resources that we do have so they can continue to create jobs rather than focus on AI taking those jobs away. And then lastly, for them to be present in global forums, so they can champion global redistribution and new treaties that would facilitate learnings and expansion related to AI technologies from lower income countries. So there were a lot of learnings about these two papers, and where does this leave us with AI? What both of them make clear is that AI is not neutral, right? It is a powerful tool, but it really depends on who applies it, how it's applied and deployed, whether it worsens or reduces inequality. So it is really important to focus on policy. These governments in these countries should really make sure that they set up their people for success and their own infrastructure to make sure that these technologies are able to push them forward rather than continue to leave them behind. Low-income countries play an active role in building capacity and targeting sectors of who this AI technology is going to benefit and how it's applied. So definitely pay a lot of attention in making sure that it's bridging the gap and that there's equity there. And then lastly, we have a moral responsibility from global institutions to help level the AI innovation field and make sure that we take learnings from places where it's already quite distributed to low income countries as well. That's all I have today, so thank you.